In the serene and picturesque town of Cedar Grove, the brutal murder of Henry Callahan sent shockwaves through the community. What seemed like a peaceful and close-knit suburban enclave was suddenly torn apart by a crime of passion and betrayal, exposing the hidden darkness beneath seemingly perfect lives. It was August 2015, and at the center of this chaos were the Callahans. Henry, a 50-year-old real estate mogul celebrated for his charisma and business savvy, and his wife Clara, a 48-year-old boutique owner with a flair for fashion and a magnetic personality, had been cornerstones of the community for over 15 years. To everyone around them, their marriage appeared flawless, almost too flawless. The Callahans were viewed as the perfect couple, admired by all. Their closest friends were their next-door neighbors, the Parkers. Simon, a university professor, and his wife Emily, a landscape architect, had recently moved to Cedar Grove with their 21-year-old son, Jerry, seeking refuge from the chaos of city life in pursuit of tranquility. Little did they know that their lives were on the brink of disaster. In fact, disaster is an understatement. Their lives were about to unravel in a way that would not only shock the entire community, but also capture national attention. Henry Callahan had always been a man of ambition. Born into a middle-class family in Detroit, he climbed the ranks of the real estate industry through sheer determination and intelligence. With a mix of charm and relentless drive, he had established a real estate empire by his early 40s, becoming synonymous with success and the kind of man everyone aspired to know. Clara, on the other hand, came from a background of privilege. The daughter of a renowned author and a classical pianist, she was raised in an environment that valued culture and sophistication. Clara had studied art history in college, harboring dreams of one day becoming a museum curator. But she decided to delay because her boyfriend then wanted them to settle down, but then he left her for another woman. She was very heartbroken and lost all will to continue her dream. A museum. Then she met Henry and they hit it off immediately and decided to get married. That's when something happened after 2 years of their marriage. She was so happy, and Clara herself was extremely happy, glad that Henry took more time off work to care for her, and their family was the definition of happiness. Sadly, everything changed when tragically their premature baby did not survive, and Clara's subsequent attempts to conceive were unsuccessful. Let's go back a bit to how they met at a charity auction in 2000. Henry was successful, but lacked immediate personal relationships. Seduced by the elegance of Clara and Grace Clara, a former model who has endured a difficult relationship and heartbreak, sees in Henry a chance to rebuild her life. Offered her emotional support and financial stability. The ceremony was lavishly held in a historic castle with silk curtains, crystal chandeliers, and a garden filled with thousands of roses. Clara wore a designer dress, while Henry looked like a businessman. The early years of their marriage were happy. Henry's career skyrocketed, making him rich and praising him for becoming a partner at the firm famous for its success. Clara took solace in opening a boutique in Sanctuary, where she could channel her creativity and passion for fashion. This shop thrives and becomes popular among the town's elite, and gives Clara a sense of purpose as the years pass, their perfect life begins to become dull. Henry's demands more time with late nights at the office and frequent business trips. The once inseparable couple have drifted apart. Clara, feeling increasingly isolated, focuses on her shop, which she opens, expanding her business, organizing events, and finding ways to fill the void with her work. The loss of their child was a turning point. It was a silent wound that no one talks about. But they both felt deeply that the nursery they had prepared remained empty, a constant reminder of their grief over their inability to conceive. Adding yet another tension to Clara's dreams. Her lackluster family was replaced by emptiness. She participated in fertility treatments alone and endured the mental and physical toll in silence. Although Henry was always supportive, he still buried himself in work. Unable to face their shared grief, their home once filled with laughter and warmth became cold, and silent Clara would sit in the nursery for hours, surrounded by the unfulfilled promise of motherhood. Currently, Henry, when he is at home, retreats to his study, immersing himself in work to escape the unbearable reality. Their conversations become short and lacking in intimacy. Clara's shop sadly becomes a refuge from the emptiness of the house. She spent many hours there, finding temporary solace in activities and creative projects. But each evening she returned to a house that felt more and more like hers, a stranger. The distance between them is palpable, a chasm of not knowing how to connect. Their common pain and increasingly tormenting unspoken fears create tension in their lives in the summer. In 2015, Callahan's marriage had become a shadow of what it once was for the outsider. They're still the golden couple. Henry is about to finalize a monumental deal that will cement his status in the industry. Clara's boutique is growing her designs to a loyal following, but behind closed doors they were simply roommates. They were more like strangers, conversations sparse, focused on schedules and social events. Physical intimacy has become rare at every touch, a reminder of unspoken pain and unmet expectations. Both Henry and Clara find it easier to maintain the illusion of themselves, happier than having to face the ever-widening gulf between them, and unbeknownst to them, this delicate balance is about to be disrupted in a way that will affect not only their lives, but the entire Cedar Grove Community Department. The Parkers, who moved into the house next door to the Callahans in early 2011, are looking for a new start. Simon, a famous literature professor, has taken a position at a nearby university with the promise of a life more quietly, away from the bustling city. Emily, a successful landscape architect, embraced the move as an opportunity to give her creative vision on new projects. Their son, Jerry, a college student studying environmental science, is spending the summer at home working on a local conservation project. The Parkers quickly became known for their warmth and intelligence that perfectly matched the chilly atmosphere. Cedar Grove Simon's engaging lectures at the university earn him respect, while Emily's stunning garden design becomes the talk of the neighbors. Emily, although initially reluctant about the move, finds herself liking the peace and natural beauty of their new home. It was at a neighborhood party in late June that Jerry Parker first saw Clara Callahan in a new light. The Callahans were organizing the event, and Henry, as usual, was the center of attention when discusses his latest venture. Clara felt lost in the crowd and retreated to the yard to get some fresh air. Jerry is looking for a break from socializing, wandered outside at the exact moment their eyes met, and Jerry gave Clara a hesitant smile. They struck up a conversation about gardening, a topic that Clara had recently been interested in filling her lonely days. Jerry, with his knowledge of environmental science, shared advice and suggestions, and a relationship began to form over the next few weeks. Clara and Jerry found reasons to spend time together. Clara invited Jerry helps take care of her garden, and Jerry is happy to have the opportunity to put his research into practice. As you would expect, or not expect, their first kiss happened. One rainy afternoon in early July, Jerry arrives to discuss the layout of the new garden, and while they are at work, a sudden downpour forces them to seek shelter in the sunroom at Callahan. As they stand by the window watching the rain, an unspeakable feeling of tension filled Clara's air. A connection she hadn't felt in years, leaning in and kissing Jerry, because Jerry's kiss was an expression of a mixture of excitement and fear despite the complexity of their emotions. Finding themselves drawn to each other, their interactions grew more frequent and intense, and they were carefully aware of the risks. Their meetings often took place discreetly at Clara's boutique or other locations, deserted around town, but as the summer progresses, it becomes more and more difficult to maintain their secrecy. They are almost caught multiple times, getting close and close to discoveries, making them more nervous, but the intensity of emotions kept them coming back. Clara felt joy and passion rising, and to be honest, this was something completely different from her life with Henry. Jerry, captivated by the sophistication of Clara and the thrill of their forbidden relationship, he finds himself developing genuine feelings and falling more and more in love with the older married woman. August 10, 2015. Cedar Grove woke up to another bright summer day for Henry Callahan. It was an important day. He had this very important meeting that could secure his biggest deal, but he left early, leaving Clara lying on the bed, lost in her thoughts. On the bed, lost in her thoughts, Clara knew Henry would be away all day, and sent Jerry a text message inviting him to come in the afternoon. At this time, Jerry became increasingly uncomfortable with his feelings for Clara. Loved that woman, but this love failed. Jerry then decides that it's time for him to end this, and seeing the text as an opportunity to confront his feelings, he replies agreeing to meet on an extended date for both of them. Clara goes through the motions at her shop. Jerry is distracted and anxious while working on his conservation project. He has difficulty concentrating at 1:30 p.m. Jerry walked to Callahan's house, his heart pounding. Clara greeted him with a nervous smile, leading him to the solarium, where they kissed for the first time. Jerry begins to speak, but Clara misunderstands his hesitation and silences him with a kiss despite their suspicions. At this point, their need for each other overwhelms their doubts while across town, Henry Callahan is in his office, his frustration driving the numbers for the deal. His wasn't a good fit, and he knew he faced a long night of consideration and negotiation. Henry Callahan made a quick decision. We'll go home to gather his thoughts and return to the office later to complete work before dinner at 2:15 p.m. His car pulled into the driveway of their lakeside home in Crestwood when he noticed Jerry Parker's rusty truck parked a little ways down the street, but thought nothing of the fact that it probably helped Clara with some chores, he reflected, as he unlocked the front door. The house was quiet, but it felt like something was wrong. A half-empty glass of orange juice lay on the kitchen chair, which was strange because Clara didn't even like the color orange. Then he heard a muffled sound coming from upstairs, frowning. He climbed the stairs. The noise grew louder as he approached the master bedroom. What he saw when he opened the door would forever be imprinted in his memory. His wife, the woman he had loved for 15 years, many years in bed with Jerry Parker. The 21-year-old son of a neighbor whom he never thought was close to her. Henry was so shocked that he flew into a rage before he could think about it, and rushed forward, screaming and asking what the hell they were doing. Jerry ran in panic to get out of bed and knocked over the nightstand in the process. There, Clara screamed, trying to pull the bedsheet around. Henry's fury pushed him forward, and he grabbed Jerry by the collar, pulling him out of the bed. Jerry struggled, panting, begging Henry that he could explain, but Henry was beyond reason. His fists flew in chaos. Jerry's hands found the heavy lamp on the bedside table. Desperation was driving him. He swung it wildly. The lamp connected to Henry's head with a sickening thud. Henry staggered, his eyes wide open in shock and betrayal, before falling to the floor, and the room fell into a haunting silence. Clara's screams pierced the silence as she tried to cover herself and process what had just happened. Blood rushed around Henry's motionless body. Jerry dropped the lamp. His hands trembled with fear and disbelief etched on his face. He looked at Clara. His voice was almost whispering, "What have we done, Clara?" Her voice. She was shaking, but resolutely insisted they hide her body, telling Jerry that she couldn't let him go to jail, and as she said this, her eyes were wild with fear. Jerry nodded, dumbfounded, quickly causing their minds to race with panic and fear. They wrapped Henry's body in a sheet, struggling under its weight. As they carried it down the stairs, the tiring task, each step filled with terror and regret, they finally managed to push Henry's body into Jerry's bed. The truck panted with exertion. Clara drove Henry's car to a nearby parking lot, left it there to make it look like he had gone out, and then she returned home, where she and Jerry began the grim task of wipe away the blood with each stroke of the cloth. Betrayal. The smell of bleach mixed with their guilt. The master bedroom that had once been a sanctuary now resembled a crime scene. For 2 days, Clara and Jerry avoided each other. The weight of the secret weighed heavily on them. Clara returned calls from Henry's office, telling his co-workers that he was out of town on business trip. But when Henry didn't show up for an important meeting, his office sent someone to his house to check on him. The HR manager stood at the door with suspicious eyes when he asked why she didn't, filing a missing person report, Clara. Her heart was pounding, trying to stay calm, lying that she thought he was on a business trip to dispel suspicions. She called the police at that moment, and the police quickly arrived. Their presence adds to the tension. They begin to investigate and interrogate Clara, who is trying to stay calm while Jerry returns to school feeling guilty and scared for cutting off contact with Clara, and they have agreed not to talk until, when the situation calmed down, Detective Laura Mitchell was assigned to the case. An experienced investigator with a sharp mind, she immediately felt something was wrong. Begins with standard questions, but quickly delves deeper. Clara's story is full of holes, and her anxiety is evident. Mitchell's sharp eyes miss nothing, noting every tremble in her voice. Of Clara, and all the contradictions in her story, the case becomes more and more complicated, and the shadow of doubt grows longer and longer. Cedar Grove detective, Laura Mitchell, begins her interrogation with keen observation. Every move Clara made, she asked Clara about the last time she saw her husband. Clara tried to sound convincing by claiming that he had gone on a business trip on Monday morning when asked for details about the trip. Clara shook her. The chief said he usually didn't mention his destinations because it was part of his job. Mitchell nodded and made a note requesting access to Henry Clara's phone and email records. Trapped agreed. Over the next few days, the investigation intensified. Mitchell's team found nothing in Henry's phone records and emails to indicate a business trip where neighbors mentioned seeing Jerry's truck at Callahan's house the day Henry disappeared, causing Mitchell to return to Clara when asked about Jerry's truck. Clara lies that he is helping with some yard work in the middle of a hot July afternoon, but let it go for a moment, shifting her focus to Jerry Parker. Jerry, struggling with the memory of Henry's lifeless body, was approached by Mitchell at school of him. When asked about his presence at Callahan's house, Jerry repeated Clara's words lying about the yard work, his voice shaking. Mitchell felt his fear, not believing him. She suggested that it would be better for him to come clean, but Jerry remained calm and insisted he knew nothing. Mitchell knew she needed more evidence. She called the forensics team to Callahan. The house where they discovered the blood had been hastily cleaned. Clara's story begins to shed further light. Mitchell notes the inconsistencies in Clara's timeline and her growing anxiety, despite Clara's efforts to maintain a facade. Jerry's interactions with each other were often suspiciously intimate. Mitchell investigated their relationship further, uncovering secret emails and text messages that revealed the depths of their affair and their desperate efforts, them to hide it in the face of evidence. Clara's calm demeanor begins to crack when asked to explain her communications with Jerry, trying to downplay their relationship as just friendship, but Mitchell was relentless. The detective pointed out that friends do not exchange such messages and mentioned traces of blood found in the house. Clara stood her ground and insisted that Henry had gone on a business trip. Mitchell turns her attention back to Jerry, who has been avoiding contact with Clara. She arranges to have Jerry brought in for further questioning because she feels pressured. Jerry decides to hire a lawyer during the interrogation process. Mitchell presents evidence piece by piece that undermines Jerry's defense. She mentioned blood found in the house and the lack of a business. The trip pressed the truth. Jerry's silence, advised by his lawyer, spoke volumes. Forensic experts confirmed the blood evidence was Henry's, with growing evidence. Mitchell obtained a search warrant for Jerry's truck, where they found fibers matching the bed sheets from Callahan's house and other traces of blood on Henry's body. Discovered in a nearby parking lot, hastily concealed the irrefutable evidence in his hands. Mitchell quickly moved to arrest Clara, and Clara was taken into custody with a resigned, masked face while Jerry was arrested. His fate is sealed by compelling evidence of their crimes. The Cedar Grove community is rocked by scandal. The idyllic exterior is shattered forever as the trial progresses, many secrets more exposed. Henry's co-workers, who testified about his increasing stress and frequent arguments with Clara's neighbors, spoke to the tension they felt in the Callahan family, the jury said. Faced with a complex web of motives and actions, each leading to a tragic climax, Clara stands her ground, her composure cracking under the weight of the guilt she admits to having committed adultery, but emphasized that she never intended for Henry to die. She described the moments before Henry's death, explaining how Jerry, in a panic, grabbed the lamp. Jerry was almost in tears during the years, recounting the fateful day, With a mixture of regret and grief, he describes his confrontation with Henry. And the moment he hit Henry in a blind panic, Jerry's parents sat in the room trial, their faces full of sadness and disbelief. They listen as their son details how he became entangled in Clara's life and how his actions led to Henry's death without their knowledge. In stark contrast to Jerry's stoic exterior, Mitchell's testimony was so important that she outlined her investigation into inconsistencies in Clara and Jerry's stories and the forensic evidence. Finally led to their arrest examination, she detailed the discovery of Henry's body, fibers in Jerry's truck, and traces of blood in Callahan's house. The presentation contained her methods painted a clear picture of guilt in the tense courtroom. As the jury deliberated for days, the weight of the decision was clear. The silence in the room was almost unbearable. As the jury finally returns with verdict, Foreman announces decision: Jerry Parker, we find her guilty of second-degree murder. Clara Callahan, we find her guilty of complicity. In murder, Clara sentenced to 15 years, while Jerry receives a 25-year prison sentence. The Cedar Grove community is left to pick up the pieces that have been forever changed by the events that unfold. Detective Mitchell, haunted by the case, can't help but wonder what happened. What could have happened if different choices had been made? The Callahans and Parkers were once ordinary people, their lives intertwined in ways that no one could have predicted. A stark reminder of how fragile the appearance of normalcy can be in the quiet aftermath, as Cedar Grove struggles to return to its peaceful existence. The shadow of the Callahan case looms large, a constant reminder that even the silliest communities can hide dark secrets. The Parker family is shattered by the revelations, and the loss of their son to the prison system has become devastating. Their seclusion, ATT testimony to the far-reaching consequences of the Callahan case. The tragic story of the Callahan house, once a symbol of success and empty harmony. A silent witness to the life that once flourished in its walls.